Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG, and again with an Arcane Rising market update. Before we get started, just a couple things to highlight. I want to always shout out Mitch at the Midtown Merchant. Mitch has a bunch of first edition cards he just added to the website yesterday or the day before, so make sure you head over there, use my promo code JustLove10. Mitch is a super great guy. He'll get your cards out in time and fast. And then I also have a TCG Player affiliate link down in my bio, but that's not as important as shopping at Midtown Merchant. And then if you really want to support the channel, if you're looking for a collection tracker for your own kind of use and the ability to track your collection, make sure that you sign up for my Patreon. It's just $5 tier, gets you access to that. And patrons, actually, this week I launched my Playmat. So this is the new artwork for my brand new first ever Kitchen Table TCG Playmat. And this is an art piece I had commissioned. There's tons of flesh and blood references. You got the gambler's gloves, you got the cracked baubles, you've got the crazy brew, and there's some stuff in here that's shout outs to the game. And then this is the full art version. This is it's limited to 50, but then I have a public version that will be kind of out there for the public, kind of long term on my website, and so that will all launch to the public. Actually, it'll be on March 1st at 7 p.m. And then patrons, for 24 hours, you were able to order. This started at 7 p.m. on the 28th. 24 hours, you're able to order the patron exclusive one, which kind of features the less play zones and just a little bit better. So I hope you guys enjoy that. The public one will be $35. The patron exclusive one is also $35. And then the full art one's actually probably sold out by now by the time you're watching it, because there's only 5 left. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the Arcane Rising market update. That's enough shilling for myself. Let's go ahead and talk about Arcane Rising. I'm going to be honest with you. This is probably the most boring market update you're going to watch. Now that you've kind of seen the playmat, I'm going to tell you that, because it's just not great. I'm going to be honest with you. There's just not a ton of sold stuff in the market, especially for first edition. So I don't want to have you walk away, but there's some interesting stuff, but you're not really missing a ton, honestly, and that makes the data really hard for me to get. That's why it takes me so long today, because when there's no data. Anyway, let's get into it. All right, sealed boxes, you can get them on TCG Player for $198 plus $10 shipping, so it puts it around $105. Sorry, did I say $198? You can get them for $98 plus $10 shipping. Puts them around $105. That's down. There's just a restock this week in Arcane Rising. There's a restock in WTR, but the Arcane Rising is kind of expected. So lots of boxes that should be in the market soon. And you can see that graph, right? Like, we used to be at $84, but the market's just accepting a $100 price point, really. $110, and just seems like that's where we're at. So for the Fabled, the eye I thought would move more this week, honestly, but it just hasn't. It's been stable for 4 weeks straight. I thought with that kind of talk about, or they kind of put it on the Fab TCG website, that the second print might not have the misprint. So I thought that was going to really affect the value or the pricing, but it doesn't seem to have drawn any attention to it. So $650 is still sitting. I would have 130 point up for you to show you the eBay sold listings, but it's down right now. That website is always down. It's ridiculous. So I can't do that in this video. So about $650 is where they're sitting. There was like 3 or 4 sold at that price. So let's go ahead and go to the legendaries. This is all for unlimited, right? For the unlimited on the legendaries, again, nothing's happening in the market. We had a couple of dollars up and a couple of dollars down. The Grasp of the Arknight is actually down pretty good, about $11. But the Arknight Skullcap kind of makes up for that, and it's up about $10. And Storm Striders is also up. So all in all, though, because of the loss at the Grasp of Arknight, really just a 0% net kind of transaction on the legendaries. So your average legendary is sitting at $146. Your lowest one is that Grass, and your highest one, of course, is the Skullcap. So if you want to look at a graph, I mean, that's still super flat. You know what I mean? Everything's flat, which is great. It's a healthy market. It's just kind of boring, right? All right, let's go to the Majestic Rainbow Foils. And this is where we had a little bit of interesting stuff. Command and Conquer is up to $125. There's a couple sold on TCG Player at that. And that's also the lowest listed at TCG Player right now. So that's where I went with that price. Other than that, Arknight Ascendancy is down for some reason. but not a ton of data, not a ton of change in the data, I should say, up 2%, with your average sitting at around $36.67. So yeah, not a ton of movement. Art of War is sitting at 47. And you can see, again, like, this is what I'm talking about. The market's super healthy. It's just boring. Like, it's just a flat line. Like, I don't know what to tell you. The regular Majestics are actually up 3%. No movement in Command and Conquer. A little bit of movement in Art of War. I actually saw that played a little bit in our tournament last night. And other than that, not really any movement. Teklo Core is up a little bit. That just could be a supply issue. Really nothing. Again, flatlining. We are just flatlining. Arcane Rising is tough. It is a hard market update for me to do, honestly. Definitely harder than Crew. Crew is definitely the easiest. All right, there's more Crew sold than any other set. That stuff just moves around in the market. It's crazy. Maximum Velocity, no changes here. Spark of Genius is actually down a little bit. Knock the Death Whistle also down a little bit. Actually, we're at minus 12%. And I mean, look at this. The rainbow foil super rares in all the sets, in both sets, I should say, are always kind of soft. Like, look at that. That graph just goes down. It's crazy. I don't know why that is, other than that you get kind of one a box, and so there's just more of them. And some of them just aren't that great, too. So, a lot of stuff down $2 or $3. All in all, we're down 12%. And your average foil super rare is sitting at about $4.80. The regular super rares are also, I believe they are down too, and that's, again, 4 weeks in a row. They're just kind of dripping a little bit. But your regular super rares, you know, nothing, again, like, there's nothing to, like, really, like, I wish I had more to talk to you about. I guess Knock the Death Whistle, or sorry, yeah, is it Knock? Yeah, Knock the Death Whistle's up about $1. That's, like, the only thing that's, like, interesting. But there's just not anything to discuss, you know. I'm sorry, I don't want to just make stuff up for you. All right, so rares, remember that I use the TCG low listed. So sellers have lowered their price, and I mean, this is like 10 weeks in a row. I mean, look at the price of these. They just keep, like, they went up for a second and then they just keep dropping. That should extend right there. But I mean, sellers just keep lowering the price because they're just not moving at the prices they have listed. And then the regular non-foil commons, or the regular rares, same thing. Everything's just going down on those cards. Nobody's I'm not saying nobody's buying them. I'm just saying more are coming to the market than people are buying in the rare slot. So the regular common rainbow foils, you know, they're still sitting. I kind of talked about these last week a little bit. Like, they're just sitting a little bit. I guess they're about the same this week, honestly. Yeah, really no change, but they're just not as valuable as they once were. They were once sitting at, you know, $5-6. Now they're mostly at like $3 or $4. I guess some of the Null Rune is a little bit different, but it seems like the robe and the boots are always the kind of more expensive one. And all in all, a 4% loss. Not that you really care about the rainbow foil commons. All right, let's get to the EV calc. So if you know, you get 42 rares in a box, 4 foil rares, 4 super rares, 1 foil super rare, 2 majestics, a quarter of a foil majestic per box. The same thing for legendary, basically 1 in every 4 boxes on those two, and then a 1 in 40 chance of hitting the fabled. So your box EV, if you were to open all 40 boxes, and so then you would hit the fabled, you would hit, you know, 10 legendaries, you are sitting at around $129.45 a box. If you were to just open 1 box, you should expect to get around $76. But again, if you don't hit the foil majestic, you're kind of out a little bit there too. So your EV, as that compares to last week, is 5 cents difference. So all that work to find all that information, and we have a 5 cent difference, and we're gonna get that. But before we get there, we have our top 10, which is always fun. This is a new thing we're doing now. This is the top 10. So the top 10 foil gainers, Command and Conquer obviously grew 13%. You gained $15. 3 of a Kind gained 7%, $1.15. At Pursuit of Knowledge up 6% for 20 cents. So nothing really super interesting there. I mean, Command and Conquer is pretty huge, but other than that, just kind of normal movements. The non-foil gainers, interesting to see that's not the same, right? It's not the same cards, which is kind of interesting. But Teklo Core is up 31%. Knock the Death Whistle is up 10%, and Art of War is up 7%. So now this is your top 3 cards that lost value this week. In your foil slot, you've got the Rusted Relic, which just seems all these are super rares. Notice, right? Like almost the whole top 10 list is super rares. Arknight Ascendancy made it to the top 10, but Rusted Relic lost 40% of its value. Tome of Aetherwind, Tome of the Arknight both lost about 25%. And you can see those rainbow super rares are super soft. The non-foil losers are also all super rares. Endless Arrow become the Arknight, Tome of the Aetherwind, all sitting between 27 and 11% losses at the top. So I think that this data is super, super interesting. And I look forward to doing, hopefully on Tuesday, we're going to do a kind of all the sets combined. What were the top 10 winners and losers from all the sets combined? So that should be a really interesting video to add every week to our kind of pool. Thank you so much to the patron who added that in for me and who helped me get that in there. So, all right, let's talk about first edition. Before we move there, if you guys could start buying and selling some first edition Arcane Rising cards, that would make my job way more interesting. And because this is going to be like, there's nothing moving on the market other than cold foil commons, which we'll talk about. But there's just nothing moving on the market. Sealed boxes. No, it's like nobody buys them. Like 160, we're up, I mean, you can't even really say that it's moved. It's just a different price point that it's sold for. So I mean, it's just like it's the same price, $1,600. That's what an Arcane Rising first edition's worth. It doesn't move. I mean, look at this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row. Just a complete flat line. A little bit of growth. I guess if you want to make an argument for a little bit of growth, you can. But really, it's just kind of flat, which is so not traditional for Flesh and Blood. But it is what it is. I guess we are kind of seeing accepted prices now in the market, which is great because everybody said it's a bubble, it's going to go to zero. And now we're kind of, 4 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row at a flat line. So that's that. That's your kind of box value. Let's see if we can get there with the cards. So you're Fabled. All right. So I put the Eye of Ophidia at 1,200, which is a 17% loss because there's one right now on Facebook. It's actually been on Facebook for like 4 days at 12,000. I said 1,200 at $12,000. And it's in a pretty good condition. I wouldn't say that it's like necessarily like a 9.5 gradable, but it's not like it's like a regular raw card, and that's kind of what we're trying to track here. So I just want to also just point out that as we get to the legendaries, I mean, okay, so we got to the Eye. There's one available for 12,000. It has not sold. That is currently on Facebook. Okay, so as we get to the legendaries, I do want to point out that the market's in a weird place because there's a ton of cards at BGS right now being graded, and it's caused twofold. People who have the money to send cards into BGS and who are buying a lot of these cards are waiting for their cards back from BGS. They're waiting to see what their grades are. They probably invested a lot of money in grading their cards at BGS. So the market's kind of just like dry. There's just nothing happening, and the amount of cards on the market is also very, very low. A lot of the prices that you're seeing on eBay are like upwards, it could be like all-time high sales, upwards of like $1,800, and no one is going to jump at that when the latest sold listings are sitting closer to the 1,000. So it's just a weird, the market's just in a really weird place right now. We did have a sale of a Grasp of the Arknight at $1,500, but then we also have an Arknight Skullcap that is currently on the market for $1,800 and, has people watching it, but it just hasn't been sold. And so I think what's kind of happening is that people are trying to target like the gem mint ones from eBay, the ones that look really, really nice, and they're waiting for those to hit the market. And in such kind of the other ones that, maybe this 1,800 one doesn't look like it's going to be a 9.5. So it's just kind of sitting there. And so anyway, I also think there's a lot of money sitting at BGS right now, people waiting to get their cards back. Maybe they're going to kind of try to flip them into other cards. So it seems like the market's just kind of in a standstill, and people aren't meeting the price that people are asking, and sellers aren't kind of lowering their price. So, yeah, I mean, we're completely flat there, and really not a ton of like movement in the cards. I think there was a Skullbone Crossdraft that sold, maybe it was like $1,020 or something like that. And there was a Tekla that sold. I mean, it's just all kind of all this stuff is just not moving up or down. It's just kind of flatline, and there's not a ton available. So now that we talked about it for a long time, your average is sitting at $13.40. Let's go to your cold foil commons. This is where the most movement's happened. You can see all the ones in green are sold listings. Achilles Accelerator. This is the stuff that drives me nuts. This is the stuff. Okay, so Achilles Accelerator was shown in a Rudy from Alpha Investments video, and then people just bought them just because he was like, hey, these are the cold foils that I've bought. And like they saw Achilles Accelerator as one of them, and then the market just dried up like literally that day. But meanwhile, there's still a bunch of other cold foil commons that it's just like, I don't know. Anyway, so that's what drove that up to 220. And then bullseye bracers. I mean, these ones, all these 153s were all Canadian, either sales or purchases that were that you had to translate to Canadian currency. Translate from Canadian currency. So I don't know if that was like the same buyer and the same purchase. It was kind of interesting. Not a ton of change. Chrono Dichotomy sold for $200 from $198. Robo Rapture's also up $50. It seems like these are definitely moving in the upwards direction. And there's not a ton, again, on the market in terms of like, I would love to have a full set of cold foil null rune, and I've been looking, and it's like you can't get them for under like, you just can't get them for like under 300 or under 250 unless you're snapping them up as soon as they're listed. And so there's like no sales of these null runes on eBay. I can even find them on Facebook Market. Like they're just not there. So up 14%. At 163. I think what it's going to take is sellers dropping their prices a little bit to hit some of these back at their next target price of 200. In my opinion, like 120 for a null rune robe, that's kind of where it is right now, but like it's moving. I would say all these are kind of so if you're selling, I probably wouldn't sell for $120. I would probably kind of take more of this average at 163. Now, that being said, I'm trying to buy some of these, so it's like I don't know. If I'm buying, I don't want to pay more than like 150 because it just kind of feels bad, right? Like because I don't know. That's what I'm trying to say. The market needs to shift, and the sellers are going to need to either drop, or the buyers are just going to have to say, okay, if I really want this, then I'm going to spend the 250, which is kind of what happened with Achilles Accelerator. Eventually, I guess the Rudy videos was enough to push them over the edge, and they purchased it. So Majestic Rainbow Foils, we can spend a lot of time on the other stuff because the only sold happened was a Command and Conquer that I saw. Sorry, there might have been others sold. I kind of look on Facebook and on TCG Player or on eBay and on Discord, but there's just not a lot on the market or moving in the market. There are some listed on Discord at the kind of 220 mark, which is pretty much similar to a lot of these values. But there was a Command and Conquer sold that sold for $895 on Facebook, or at least that was the listed price, and it said sold. But it had like some pretty severe cornering on it, so I wouldn't consider that like a near mint. I would kind of consider it like a light played maybe. It was probably factory stuff, but again, for a grader who's kind of looking for like a nice copy, I'd still think about $1,200 is the current market price. So again, no movement there. Majestic, your average though is sitting at $363. Regular Majestics, I think there were a couple sold. Yeah, 3. So Mordred Tide sold for $35. Command and Conquer, kind of soft. What's really interesting is the amount of these that are sold, the generics, compared to the other cards is just higher. And I don't know if that's because the price point is higher, so a seller is more motivated to sell a card because they're getting more value. That might be part of it, or if it's just simply that more people want it. But the problem is that the price isn't necessarily always rising. So it's kind of interesting. There's quite a few Command and Conquers this week at 150, and quite a few Art of War too at 130. So all in all, that kind of drove the price down 11% to $51.40 for your average. Super Rare Rainbow Foil, is it following suit with the? Yep, we're down. We had a Tome of the Arknight sell for $70. Other than that, there just wasn't much on the market this week. So your average is sitting at $84 based on that kind of drop from $93 for Tome of the Arknight to $70. And then the non-foil super rares I guess I should probably show you that graph, right? Like we're just in a flat zone again. Ignore this doesn't exist, but we're just kind of a flat zone. Like I guess it's not that flat. It's not long enough to really call it flat. And there is, 3 weeks in a row of negative pricing. But then for the regular non-foil, Chains of Eminence sold, a Spark of Genius sold, just kind of re-solidifying these prices. And then the rest of them just, on eBay, on TCG Player, no new sold listings of any of that stuff. So sitting at $12.13 for your average, and that's about the same as it was last week. Your rares, the sellers have, let's see what they've done. The sellers have, okay, so the prices are starting to balance out on the rares. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row that's within 3%, which is probably, a pretty healthy margin here. So pretty flat line on the rares. Your average foil rare is sitting at $15.51. And then the regular non-foil rares are sitting at $1.35. Really no change there as well. So the common rainbow foils actually do have some value. There's actually some that sold, or was that a rare that I wanted to show you guys? It might have been rare. I think it was rare. Let's actually back up. There was something. Oh yeah. So this green one kind of caught me by. This is a pedal to the metal. This green one kind of caught me by surprise. I was like, that's got to be an outlier. Kind of what I do is I pull these in and then I look for any outliers based on last week's price, right? So last week they were listed for 20. A couple weeks ago, the lowest was 44. So I went in and found the sold listing. One actually sold this week for $40. So that was the blue pedal to the metal. So very, very interesting. So all in all, $15. All right, we are on the common rainbow foils. No huge changes this week. All in all, really 0% change, but also no like massive swings in any cards. And then the commons are still just worth about $1. So let's get to EV calc. You know what's in a box. If you were to open everything and sell the commons, you'd be able to get about $1,500. Again, you're not going to be able to actually do that. That's if you're opening 40 boxes, you got the Fabled, all that stuff. If you just open one box, kind of your more go-to value would be sitting around $698, because again, you're not going to hit the legendary, you're not going to hit the Fabled, and chances are, I guess you might hit a Majestic, which is kind of built into that price a little bit, but really you're sitting between like $600 and maybe like $750, depending on what you hit. But, that obviously doesn't get to the $1,500 box price or $1,600 box price. So this is the price here that kind of, it's everything but the non-foil commons. So again, maybe you're opening up a case or something, you might be a little bit closer to this other than the Fabled. So this is the price that we track, and that's at $133.06. If you compare that to last week, we have lost 4% in value. So let's go ahead and look at our top 10 winners and losers. A pedal to the metal is your top 10 winner. And again, this is one sold listing that I found, right? So it doesn't mean you're not going to be able to, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to get this everywhere and you're going to sell 10 of your, foil pedal to the metal for $40, but that is what the data says. So, and then all the rest of them are kind of the cold foils, right? Like Achilles Accelerator, Mage Master Boots, Robe of Rapture, all up pretty good. Those are up, the Achilles Accelerator is up 60-70%, Mage Master Boots is up 50%, and Robe of Rapture is up 33%. So Enchanting Melody is another 16% gain. Mordred Tide, probably the more important one, is up 16%, and then Aether Spindle as well, up 14% for your top 10. And we'll revisit these kind of at the end of the week, remember. And then your biggest losers this week with the Rainbow Foil Enchanting Melody losing 60%. Your Tome of the Arknight, super rare, losing 24%. That went from 93 to 70 this week. And then your Eye of Ophidia, right, went from 14.5 to 12,000. And I don't want to like upset anybody by saying that, but that one's been on Facebook for a long time and nobody's picked it up. So kind of interesting in my opinion. Maybe I'm missing something on the card, I don't know. But and then Arknight Skullcap also made the top 10 list, minus 10% from 2000 to 1800. And then your non-foil losers, just a couple rares, and then Command and Conquer is on there as well, going from 200 to 150. So that's 25% loss. So Anyway, it wasn't the most important market update I don't think that you've ever witnessed. So if you're still here, I really appreciate you digging through that with me. And, I hope you have a good day. And let me know what you think about all this stuff that we're going through and doing together. And it's certainly an interesting world, right? Like it's certainly a wild ride that we're on with this card game. So I hope you have a good day. Remember to be kind to the people around you. And I'm sorry that I'm like 3 hours later than I'm usually. I'm posting this video, but it's hard to find all the data for you.